I've been having an absolute blast playing Legends of Arceus. I've really taken my time with this one, as opposed to previous Pokemon games where I would just fly through to the post-game. But in Legends of Arceus, I've explored every nook and cranny. I've climbed every mountain, of course, before realizing that Sneasler was an obtainable, rideable Pokemon. I've even done my fair share of shiny hunting. As a side note, my brother actually caught a shiny Buizel before catching the elusive large Buizel. And after 100 hours of hearing this sweet noise, I'm finally stuck at my confrontation with Arceus, because actually I suck at video games. Legends of Arceus really breathes some much needed wild back into a franchise that really wants you to focus on adventure. But more than that, Professor Lavington explains that Pokemon themselves shrink down to fit in the Pokeball. I'm a huge nerd for lore, but Pokemon canon is one of the most conflicting and confusing franchises. And the Mysteries of the Pokeball is one that has intrigued me since the anime introduced the GS Ball and then immediately dropped it a couple episodes later, hoping that the audience would forget about it. But I didn't forget about it. So today I'm putting on my Professor Lab coat so that we can uncover the science behind how Pokeballs actually work. So let's start with the basics. A trainer throws a Pokeball, the ball opens, slurps it inside, and then is considered caught or owned. The trainer can then throw out that Pokeball and it spits that Pokemon back out. So for our purposes, let's divide Pokeballs into 3 categories. Ancient Pokeballs, those that predate the events of Legend of Arceus. We have primitive Pokeballs, so we're going to consider those in the same era as Legends of Arceus, typically handmade. And modern, the fancy mass-produced ones or variants of them, such as the Fastball. I know the Fastball is handmade from apricorns, but for our purposes, we're going to consider those modern. And so what separates modern Pokeballs from any other of those categories is ownership, registered ownership. So let me explain. When you begin your Pokemon journey, your local professor will give you your first Pokemon, your starter. And this is important, they also give you your Pokedex. This Pokedex acts as your ID, your trainer ID. In the games, I know that sometimes your trainer ID is on a separate menu than in your Pokedex, but in the animes, when Ash goes to the Pokemon Center to register for the Pokemon League, he has to hand over not only his party of Pokemon, but also his Pokedex. This is then scanned into a database and he's good to go. With all of the Pokemon trainers in the region registering to the same database, I'm surprised that Team Rocket hasn't targeted it, and that's why I use NordVPN. I'm just kidding. I'm brand new to YouTube. So if you like videos about lore and theories, you can subscribe. Check back here. I have a ton. So anyway, a trainer registers their Dex and their Mons. But when a trainer catches a new Pokemon and adds it to their party, how is the database updated? I'm going to make an assumption here, and this is just my best guess, but if you have a better idea, then let me know. My assumption is that the Pokeballs themselves have some sort of link back to the trainer ID, and therefore the Dex. This could be done a number of ways with the use of serial numbers on Pokeballs, which you could essentially consider the Pokemon ID. So let's say you go to your local Pokemart to buy some quick balls, because why do you bother to even use any other kind? Unless it's aesthetic. You get a pass for aesthetic. The clerk then hands them over and you whip out your deck, scanning each of the 55 Pokeballs, because let's be honest, you buy in bulk, and you've got your 5 Premier Balls. So you link them all to your Dex. That Pokeball is now yours, it is linked to your trainer ID, and any Pokemon that you catch with it will also be linked to your trainer ID. Your Dex updates when something new is caught, and bing bang boom, the database is updated, and now you are no longer stuck with your registered starter and 5 Bidoofs against the Elite Four. I mean, unless you want to, because that short was really cute. But when you catch your 6th Bidoof, or your 7th Pokemon in your party, it gets automatically warped to the PC. I saw an explanation somewhere that the Dex is capable of warping it to the PC for you, but I can't remember where I saw that, and I can't find it again to confirm it. So that could be a possibility, or I could be making it up. However, in the anime, there was an instance where a trainer caught a 7th Pokemon, and it wasn't automatically warped to a PC. It remained in their bag. It was just that the Pokeball button glowed red, and it was considered inactive. And I think that this is more proof of intervention by the Pokemon League. I think that this is more of a failsafe imposed by the Pokemon League to ensure that you are not using more than 6 Pokemon at a time when you're up against gym leaders or other trainers. Therefore, no cheating. After all, 6 is their arbitrary rule, not mine. I would love to have an army of Mons. But Jess, you say, in Legends of Arceus, your Pokemon warp to the ranch. But to that I say, do they? Are you sure? I think that the 6 Pokemon limit in Legends of Arceus is still there just because we've accepted it so long. It's been part of the rules for so long. And why change that when we still have trouble rendering entries? However, you can still freely switch out any of your Pokemon party at a Pokemon camp. At any camp, which is notably not the ranch. So either the security corps are really fast runners, or they are actually lugging around your 50 Alpha Snorlax balls inside of that giant trunk that you have stuffed full of 50 dubious discs. But to be honest, either is likely because warping back to Jubilife takes literally 0 time. So anyway, all of that to say that modern Pokeballs are part of a Pokemon management system, which includes registered ownership. This registered ownership should not be confused with the bond that a trainer and a Pokemon have. While Pokemon in both a modern and a primitive ball over time develop a bond with their trainer, the power of friendship has only recently been harnessed, as the people of Hisui are still largely afraid of Pokemon. Further back, ancient Pokeballs, such as the devices seen in the episode of Pokemopolis, had a distinct lack of trainer, and therefore a distinct lack of bond. This can cause the Pokemon to become enraged at its capture, and even in Gengar's case, capturing people in return. Similar devices like Kyogre and Groudon's orbs or Hoopa's prison bottle have the capability to capture a part of the Pokemon's power, but even this small part has become so vengeful that it has the capability to possess people, or even other Pokemon in the case of Ash's Pikachu. These ancient Pokeballs and devices were key in determining the necessity of the bond. But that's still only one piece of the puzzle. How does actually catching a Pokemon work, and what is inside of a Pokeball? In Legends of Arceus, Professor Lavington mentions that Pokemon are the ones that shrink themselves down, not the Pokeball shrinking the Pokemon down. Professor Westwood mentions that he started studying a storage device when he noticed that a Pokemon that he was researching shrunk down small enough to fit inside of his glasses case. So can Pokemon change their size at will? I mean, we know that there are 18 Pokemon who can learn the move Minimize, which is essentially the same thing as shrinking down small enough to fit in a Pokeball, right? Well, sort of. So let's look at the big picture first. Giant Pokemon. Huge Pokemon are a recurring theme across many of the works, and as mentioned previously, Pokemopolis was one of the first episodes in the anime to feature giant Pokemon. But it certainly wasn't the last. More recently, the Galar region featured Dynamaxing, which a trainer could have their Pokemon do if they wore a special band crafted from a piece of Eternus's body. And so this is important, right? Like, a special item was needed in order to trigger this phenomenon. phenomenon Pokemon. A special item was needed to trigger this phenomenon. However, it seems that this is a characteristic that is unique to Pokemon. People and regular animals don't Dynamax, just like people and regular animals can't be caught in a Pokeball. So, while changing size or form is an inherent ability of all Pokemon, an external force is needed to trigger this dormant ability. But again, as mentioned, I just want to note that this may not be a dormant ability for all Pokemon, as is the case with those that can use moves that alter their size, such as Minimize. Either way, the important takeaway here is that the ability to change its size, shape, form is an ability that is specific and unique to Pokemon, which also helps us to differentiate what can and cannot be caught by a Pokeball. So Laventon may be onto something, but I also just want to reference a theory real quick about how a Pokeball converts the Pokemon to pure energy. And while I think there is some substance there, I think it's much more likely that that energy is more of the catalyst, not the cause. I think that that energy is more of the trigger that feeds into that dormant ability that Pokemon have. But the most important question of all is what is it like on the inside of a Pokeball? There are tons of depictions of the inside of a Pokeball containing this like special made utopia for Pokemon. And while this gives me the warm and fuzzies, I don't think that it's the whole truth. You see, if a Pokemon is physically inside of a container, and that container is subjected to an external force, say lava, then theoretically this Pokemon who is physically contained inside of this Pokeball and this tiny universe that is also physically inside of this Pokeball would burn up. But time and time again, we see that that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. In the Red Gyarados episode, radio waves from Team Rocket's evolution experiment were causing Pokemon that were outside of their Pokeball, such as Meowth and Pikachu, to become sick. However, when other Pokemon were called out, they were not necessarily and not immediately affected by the same sickness that Pikachu, Meowth, and the wild Pokemon were subjected to. We also see that when a ball breaks, the Pokemon is not harmed either. The only ramification is that the Pokemon cannot be called out or summoned until the ball is fixed, as seen in both the manga and the anime. I do just want to note that this is different than those ancient Pokeballs, where when they were broken, such as the case of Kyogre and Groudon's orbs and Hoopa's prison bottle, when they were broken, they made the Pokemon whole again. So grab your tinfoil hats, because this is where it starts to get a little weird. Remember the bond that I was mentioning earlier? The bond is what keeps Pokemon in modern Pokeballs safe and happy. The power of friendship is the fuel that allows people to turn back from stone. It allows Tiny Hoopa to finally absorb Big Hoopa. It also can stop literal God from destroying the world, but it also creates a tiny pocket dimension for your tiny pocket monster. And so it's my theory that the Pokeball acts as a link between the material world and this tiny utopia. Once the bond is established, the Pokeball can then design and create the perfect utopia for your Pokemon to roam and dwell. And this is kind of developed based on what the trainer knows that the Pokemon wants or needs, kind of like a room of requirement. So I think that modern Pokeballs are the only Pokeballs that can create this tiny pocket universe. And my reasoning behind that is that modern Pokeballs are typically the only ones shown with mirrors lining the inside of it. And I know in the anime Kurt, who also still has the GS ball, Kurt is one of the craftsmen who can still craft Pokeballs by shelling out apricorns and forging them into, a type of ball depending on the color of apricorn. So I cannot confirm whether the inside of these types of balls in the anime are lined with mirrors or not, but for our purposes, since they're created in modern times, I'm going to assume that Kurt has accounted for this and is also including them in his Pokeball, since they do look more modern than primitive. The mirrors is the important part, and in the Pokemon world, mirrors have typically been shown to link dimensions together. This is also shown by Giratina, who can use mirrors to travel between the material plane and the distortion world. Either way, I think that the modern Pokeball uses the power of friendship and these mirrors to create this pocket dimension. I think that this bond is also what marks the Pokemon so that it can't be caught by another trainer's Pokeball. In the games sometimes, and sometimes in the anime, you'll see trainers step in between the Pokemon and the ball that's flying at it. But I think this is more of like a visceral gut reaction than actually blocking it from necessity. Because we have seen in the past where a trainer throws a Pokeball at an already owned Pokemon and the Pokeball just doesn't work. In one of the saddest Pokemon episodes ever, a Charmander could not be caught by Ash because it was still loyal to its original trainer, and therefore the link was still open. However, once Charmander realized the truth, this link was cut off, and Ash was then able to catch the Charmander. But, professors, the scientific community only works if we bounce off of each other and springboard off of each other's ideas. So I definitely do want to hear your ideas. I want it to be a discussion. What are your Pokeball theories? How does a Pokeball work? Let me know and let's discuss.